This is True North, Navigating Law with Dean Rich Freer, a podcast from Emory University School of Law. Dean Freer, a nationally recognized scholar and award-winning teacher, has been part of Emory Law for more than 4 decades. In each episode, he shares stories and conversations with students, alumni, faculty, and thought leaders, exploring the values and vision that define Emory Law.
Hi, I'm Rich Freer, and this is True North, Navigating Law. You know, I've been dean for a little over a year now, and it's the greatest honor of my life. And we're having fun. And what are we doing? We're navigating toward True North. What is that? True North is the shorthand for our mission. It's what Emory Law does, what Emory Law is all about. And that's been true for more than a century. We educate and prepare principled, sophisticated legal professionals who can thrive and serve their communities anywhere in the world. And so our shorthand is that. Now, we face challenges just as any school does. But when you face a challenge, you know which way you're going. That's a huge advantage. And we have our compass set on True North, so we know where we're going. And to guide us, we have generated 5 strategic goals, serving, pointing toward True North. 1, student flourishing. And we'll talk about those goals. And one of the great things is, as this administration evolves, so do the initiatives that we do under each of these strategic goals. So student flourishing initiatives we started with last year, very proud of those. Those are up and running. And now, in our second year, we're moving to the next phase of those. Strategic goal number 2, academic eminence. And we'll talk about that on the faculty side and the student side. Number 3, to showcase our clinics, our centers, and our programs. Number 4 is about fiscal responsibility. And number 5 is about our culture. Our culture. What is that? It is Team Emory Law. That's what we're building, a sense of team. Everybody working together. No silos. We have each other's back. And we're working together. And we're sailing with that compass set on True North. I am so excited about this, our first podcast, our first True North. Today, I'm going to be talking to 3 colleagues. 3 friends. And I'm so delighted that we're going to get to explore different aspects of True North with each of them. We're going to talk to Kamina Pinder, and we're going to talk to Paulo Ramos. We're going to talk to Randy Waldman. And each of them will talk about a different aspect of True North and about our strategic priorities. With Kamina Pinder, we'll be talking about student flourishing initiatives and how those are changing over time. And with Paulo Ramos, we're going to be talking about the engagement of the students and student wellness and this culture, student engagement and belonging. And with Randy Waldman, we're going to be talking about clinics and how clinics are such an integral part of what it means to be at Emory Law.
At Emory Law, the journey to becoming a principled and sophisticated legal professional begins with opportunity. And that opportunity grows when our community gives back. Members of the class of 1986 have come together to launch the Richard Freer Endowed Scholarship, a $110,000 commitment from alumni who once sat in the same classrooms and now seek to open doors for future generations. Their goal is to invest in student flourishing, ensuring that today's students have the resources, mentorship, and support to thrive intellectually, personally, and professionally. The scholarship isn't just a gift, it's a message. It says, we believe in you. It says, your potential matters. And it reminds every Emory Law student that their success is a shared mission connecting decades of alumni, faculty, and friends. Every contribution, no matter the size, helps sustain the academic excellence and well-being that define the Emory Law experience. Together, we can continue building a community where students don't just study law, they learn to lead with integrity and purpose. To learn more or make a gift to the Richard Freer Endowed Scholarship, visit momentum.emory.edu/Freer.
What a treat this is. Episode 1, guest number 1, Kamina Pender. Thank you for joining.
It's a pleasure to be here, Rich.
You and I have been pals for years, and we are each bar review lecturers, and we have talked a lot through the years about the student experience, student engagement, and the like. And it is such a thrill to be working with you.
Well, the pleasure is mine as well. I mean, it is very exciting to work under and with someone who is so committed to student success.
Well, thank you. And you are the first, and you're the first Associate Dean of Academic Excellence. And you are building that program. It is attracting investment, and it is making a difference. I'm going to go back to before I was dean, and I was named dean. And I remember very well just kind of getting you and John Acevedo and me in a room.
Yes.
And what did we brainstorm?
Absolutely. We were starting to strategize long before you actually took on the official role of dean. How do we sit down and ensure that our students are getting what they need to be successful in law school and successful in their careers? And of course, successful in passing the bar exam.
Yeah, exactly. It was so much fun. And we came up with student flourishing initiative ideas that we were able to take to the faculty in the spring of 24, and the faculty approved. And so we hit the decks running because you hit the decks running.
Right.
You did the first year course, Elements of Legal Study, and the third year course, the Integrated Survey course. And you designed those. I mean, that was the first iteration of student flourishing. Tell us about those. Tell us about each class and the goal and how you did it.
Well, you know what? It's an ongoing process, right? And we are responsive to what it is that our students need. And one of the things, and now this program doesn't just start when they walk through the doors, but we talked about getting our students ready even before they walk through the doors. And so we have prospective students who ask all the time, what can I do to get ready for law school? And so I thought about that question and thought, you need to read a lot. And you need to understand what you're reading, because when you come here, you're going to read dense, sometimes boring materials.
Well, not Civ Pro.
Not Civ Pro, and not contracts,
Yeah,
for
not
sure.
contract. I
For
mean,
sure.
that's not boring.
But sometimes these cases are difficult to
yeah.
read. And
Yeah.
so what we've done is to create materials for them to review over the summer so that they're introduced to cases, so that they have the opportunity without the pressure of a number of courses and the anxiety of actually starting law school to submit something, to do some writing, to do some basic reading comprehension, to read through materials that aren't necessarily easy to read, and to write out answers and ultimately get feedback on that as soon as they walk through the door without, again, even though they're getting feedback, they're not really being evaluated. We're just helping them to transition to academic life in law school.
And what a great, that was a brilliant idea. And that was totally your idea to get them engaged before they get here. And there is no pressure at that point. And that not only gets them working on skills that they're going to need, but it also gets them appreciating that not every time they turn around are they being judged or assessed or anything else.
Right.
This is a team effort. But tell us about the 1L class, because Elements of Legal Study, my hope was, and you did it even beyond what I hoped about, was to take orientation, but make it telescoped out so that the skills training and the awareness of what you need as a law student would be carried throughout the year.
Well, this is one of the things that you and I discussed from the very beginning. This is not a one-off. This is not one activity. This is not one class. This is something that requires us as a community to get our students ready for practice, to get them ready for law school, to continue to provide support for them, both academically, but also holistically through the law school process. So yes, we have now a series of classes that are called Elements, and the class is called Elements of Legal Study. And what it's designed to do is to provide the students with supports that will assist them in preparing for their doctrinal and writing classes, their skills classes, their doctrinal classes, and to continue to provide that support throughout the year so that it doesn't feel burdensome as though, oh my goodness, they already have so much work coming at them. But it's a type of academic support, but I think of it more as just reinforcement. And it started over the summer, but this reinforcement is consistent with what they're learning. And we continue to support them throughout their academic career.
And how great is that? Because everybody knows when you come to law school, you're going to be educated and trained about law and the practice.
Right.
But they need to know how to do law school.
That's right.
And that's what's so brilliant.
That's right.
Tell us a little about the third year course.
So the third year course we spend some time talking, reviewing writing, right? Because that is so critical. So we spend the first couple of weeks talking about the multi-state performance test, and they take practice multi-state performance tests, and it reviews what they learned, certainly their first year in their legal writing classes, how to structure a memo, how to structure briefs, both objective/predictive writing and persuasive writing, reviewing the structure. But what's different about it is, of course, with the MPT, which is part of the bar exam, it's timed. And so even when you're a strong writer, you may not have had to, certainly most have not had to write a memo in 90 minutes or even a portion and have an almost complete memo or portion of a legal document within 90 minutes. So we get the feel of that. But we also talk about, strengthening their analytical skills, reviewing what they've already learned and continuing to build on those skills. We work on, obviously, the substance of a number of different bar topics. Then we talk about how to implement those through essays and multiple choice questions, which is part of the multi-state bar exam.
It's just this ramp up to doing bar review when you actually graduate and then go on to that. So one of the things about that is MPT, multi-state performance test, is something that no one else would be testing on because it is a skill set. And of course, it's going to be, that skill set is becoming more important, right?
It is.
Because of next gen.
It is. And we have next gen on the horizon. Actually, the first next gen bar exam will be launched in the summer of 2026. Most of our students will be taking it the summer of 2028. But it's this really, actually, I think, wonderful merger of doctrine and skills, because that's what the practice of law is really about.
Right.
And we as law schools, not just Emory, but all law schools, we need to adapt to what it is. I mean, this is what practicing lawyers do. Now we have a bar exam that reflects this, and we have to come out of sort of the traditional silos of legal education and come together and talk about how do we merge our skill sets and how do we best prepare our students. And we've been very fortunate, as you already know, our faculty is on board. They have been incredibly supportive of these efforts.
I mean, everybody's on board on this because everybody realizes that it's our moral imperative. We are preparing lawyers. They have to pass the bar. They have to get jobs.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this: how has being a bar review lecturer affected your outlook in the classroom generally, but in your role? How has it helped you?
I think that it has helped me to see. I think that experience, both as a bar review lecturer and I've actually been a bar review grader, I think it's helped me to see that there is not this divide between what I teach in the classroom and what is on the bar exam. They coexist, right? And I think some think, I'm not going to teach to the bar exam. The doctrine is something different. And we can teach at a high intellectual level. We're certainly teaching doctrine and theory, but we can also think about what our students need for the bar exam and for practice at the same time. These things are not mutually exclusive. And I think having that background, and you know better than I, because you've been doing this a very long time, you know how to incorporate all of that into your classroom teaching.
It's so true. I mean, it's been so enriching at so many levels. Let me ask you, what kind of feedback are you getting? These student flourishing initiatives, the first year was the 1L course, the 3L course, the heavy lift, and you did them both and you teach them both.
Yes.
And they've gone very well. What feedback are you getting?
No, I've been getting really great feedback. The students are I mean, and they're so hungry for feedback themselves, right? And so, along with the classes, I've also opened up these MPT workshops so they could get extra practice.
Great.
And one of the great things about this is, that saying, you don't know what you don't know. They're learning what they don't know. And so they're asking for what they need. And so they're saying, I feel like I'm seeing that I have a deficiency in this. What resources do you have to offer? As going through these classes is really opening up their eyes. They know that they've been prepared very well by the faculty here, but at the same time, the bar sometimes is a different animal. It's consistent, but it's different. And so recognizing early on, hey, I would like some more practice in this is great. And I'll have them come in the office, and we're increasingly, and thank goodness, I have to give a shout out, and I know that you want to do the same, to Richard Conviser, who has provided us with a very generous gift that's allowed us to provide additional resources to these students who are requesting them. So we don't have to turn them away. We're like, we have these resources, and we're offering them increasing resources to prepare them. And I don't think this just prepares them for the bar exam. I think it's also very helpful in many of their other classes.
Well, very good. And you're right about Richard. What an amazing gift. Richard Conviser is the founder of the whole bar review industry and
Right.
the founder of Barbary. He's been a friend for years and a friend of Emory's for years. And you know him and I know him. And he has invested in academic excellence. It's
That's right.
exactly in your program. And you've been instrumental in his wanting to do that. And I so appreciate it. I think it's really exciting.
And it continues to be. And I continue to look forward to working with you on so many important projects critical to the success of this law school.
Well, thank you for everything you're doing. And
Thank you,
it
Rich.
is humming along beautifully.
All right.
Thank you,
It's my
Camille.
pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks.
True North Podcast. It's so great to welcome you, Randy Waldman. You and I have been pals for years. We've talked a lot about tennis and pickleball and Civ Pro, like race judicata, right?
It's been great to be friends with you for the last 19 years, and I'm excited to be here for the True North podcast.
Well, thank you. And one of the things I've freely admitted is that I've known you all these years, and I've known about the Juvenile Defender Clinic all these years. But once I became dean, I actually learned about what goes on in much greater detail. Tell us about how the Juvenile Defender Clinic and that experience gets students practice ready.
Absolutely. We work with second and third year law students. They're admitted to practice under Georgia's Student Practice Act. And they start representing young people from the minute they show up in the clinic. We do a fairly intensive orientation before the semester starts, and then they are given their first case during the first week of the semester. And once they get their first case, they hit the ground running. They interview clients, they read a case file, they read police reports, they watch body cam videos, and then they write motions, they prepare motions for hearing, they try cases, they live the life of a youth defender.
It's remarkable. And one of the things I fear happens sometimes is that students or faculty, or I don't know, maybe even the public, think of the clinic as separate from the law school. Well, it's there, but clinics are so integral to legal education.
I couldn't agree more. Students who come through the clinic live the life of an attorney. And we talk about clinics as the pathway and the transition. It is the transition moment when they go from student to lawyer. And the students inside the clinic, they serve as first chair for each of their cases. I am their second chair.
Wow.
They sit at counsel table. I sit on the benches behind them. And we do that through a very intentional set of educational opportunities throughout the semester. We don't just hand them a case file, as I indicated. We actually plan, do, reflect. So I talked about interviewing students. Our students come into the clinic. We have a full lesson on how do you interview young people. Then they write an interview outline. Then we have a supervision meeting where we talk about interview outlines. Then they go out and they interview their client, but they're not done yet. Then they have a supervision meeting where we talk about what went right and what went wrong about interviewing clients. And we do that with each step of everything we do throughout the clinical program.
It's a tremendous amount of work. It's a heavy lift for the student. I remember talking to a student who said, wow, this was so much work, but it's the best class I ever took. You must get that a lot.
It is a lot of work. They are in the clinic space 10 to 12 hours a week, and they are working on their clinic cases all of that time while they're in the clinic.
And to have that actual experience of having to make a case and make the argument and being first chair, wow, that's remarkable. The other thing that strikes me is how great this is for students to understand the attorney-client privilege and understand confidential communications. I mean, it's the law.
It's true. One of the things we do during our intensive orientation week is that we spend an entire 2 hours talking about the ethics and the ways the Model Code of Professional Conduct or the Georgia Code of Professional Conduct is different and interacts as they work with young people. People forget that young people are actually clients and have autonomous moments. And we think about young people and we think about their parents and we think about the interrelationship between them and their parents. But you mentioned attorney-client privilege. That exists outside of the parent-child relationship. And there are a lot of moments where a parent jumps in and says, tell me everything. And you can't tell them everything because Rule 1.6 says you can't tell them everything without getting informed consent from your client first. And so there's a balance and a line that students have to walk.
It's fascinating. And it's got to be so frustrating for the parents, right? But
it's
you must have to
frustrating.
deal with
It's
that.
frustrating for everyone because
it's
you
gotta
have to remember that our clients are 13, 14, 15, and they're not used to making decisions. Their parents aren't used to allowing them to make decisions, but the law requires them to be the decision makers for this process.
And Randy, one of the things we talked about is the incredible variety of fora, of places where you do represent juveniles. And it's from school situations, the medical situations, the court situations, juvenile court. Talk about that, please, because it blew my mind because you had a wonderful race judicata problem involving some sort of administrative school.
So primarily our clients come from juvenile courts and we represent them in the delinquency process, which are offenses that would be crimes if committed by adults. And that's the origin point for almost all of our clients. But our clients also face obstacles throughout many other forums in their life. And the primary one of those is school. And so we do school suspension hearings on behalf of clients of ours who have been suspended. And then we also do special education school discipline. We're working a little bit on an SSI matter right now. And so we try and remove obstacles in a holistic way for our clients to be successful in their underlying juvenile delinquency case.
Well, that's got to be the point, is the holistic interest of the child and getting through this particular thing so the person can go on with her life or his life and just get things.
That's the goal.
Functioning.
The purpose of juvenile court is to be a rehabilitative placement. It is supposed to be you're there and you're done, and you never come back, and you don't become an adult defendant, you don't become a repeat offender, you don't become a recidivist. And the way to do that is to figure out what the cause is and intervene and reverse a trajectory.
And it's an interesting thing because in criminal law we always debate what's the purpose of criminal law. Is it retribution, rehabilitation, punishment, whatever it is? But it's overtly rehabilitation, which is not all that clear in the actual criminal law for adults.
Correct. For juvenile court, it is overtly rehabilitation with a little bit of accountability mixed in. But primarily the goal is rehabilitation.
That's great. What if all the things the clinic has done, we'll talk about what you're proudest about, because you've run this and you've been in charge and done a wonderful job, and just go ahead and tell us what you're proudest of.
It's hard to narrow it down to one.
Okay, well,
quite
more
honestly,
than
it's
one.
hard to narrow it down to
Do
one.
more
We've
than
done some amicus work that has truly impacted and changed policy statewide. we did an amicus brief on a question of whether young people can assert the insanity defense. And the Georgia Supreme Court held that the answer is yes, young people can assert the insanity defense in juvenile court. That was brand new. We did an amicus similarly about whether young people can use an Alford plea, whether they can go forward and say, I will take this plea because it's in my best interest, even though I am not guilty. And the answer was yes to that too. So some big picture amicus work. The more fun, right, the day to day is the clients who call me 5 years later, 10 years later. I have one particular young man I worked with as an 8th grader, and he called me when he graduated high school, and then he called me when he graduated college, and he is right now a middle school teacher. And he sent me a picture with him and his class and him and his child. And those are, for me, the moments we live for when we do this work.
Oh, my word. That's so rewarding. It's incredible. One of the things I was so impressed with too, Randy, is your own personal involvement in this, what I would say, on the ground with the clients, but also in the policy work. But you work nationally. I mean, you're involved with groups in the Southeast and nationally as well. Maybe tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I do a lot of work regionally in the Southeast, in what we call the southern region of the Galt Center. The Galt Center is a national, it used to be called the National Juvenile Defender Center. It is a national organization aimed at increasing and enhancing the representation of young people throughout the country. And for them, nationally, I've done a couple of statewide assessments where you go in and you look at the quality of representation that have resulted in reports being written. And those reports work to create policy reform on the ground in each of those states. And then primarily, I do a lot of training. I train youth defenders, mostly in the Southeast, but also, again, nationally, on best practices of representation of young people.
Well, it's fabulous. You're a national voice and nationally recognized. Do you run into policy decisions maybe in other states that you think Georgia ought to consider? Or is that
all of the time?
Yeah.
We're in the South. The South is a unique place to practice, and reforms that happen in the Northeast and reforms that happen in California don't necessarily hit the Southeast all that often. We had a moment, Georgia was leading youth justice reform, criminal justice reform under Governor Deal a while back, and we rewrote our juvenile code. Barton Center was very at the forefront of that work, but we're at the back end of a couple of those other initiatives, like Raise the Age. Youth are adults at the age of 17 here in Georgia. We're one of 4 states where it's not 18. We try a lot of young people as adults. We start at the age of 13 trying young people as adults here in Georgia. It's not like that in a lot of other places.
That's interesting, but that's a legislative call, right?
Yep.
So, but some of these things you mentioned are court calls, like allowing juveniles. I assume that was a court decision to allow juveniles to have an Alford plea and allowing juveniles to assert the insanity.
Those were calls that were made by the Georgia Supreme Court.
Interesting.
And so there are definitely some issues that are legal interpretations that are made by our courts. Whether we can allow a reasonable child standard, which came into being in the Miranda context by NRAJDB from the U.S. Supreme Court, how far that extends and what role that plays in other decisions. Those are court calls.
Well, it's fascinating because your work is so multifaceted, working with these clients, and what an incredibly rewarding experience for you, but for the students. I mean, that's the key. This is on-the-ground training, and one of the things we have to make absolutely clear to all our students is that this is core legal education. Maybe in a different building, maybe called a clinic, but it's front and center in what we do.
Yeah, we talk about skills each day. So the best way to learn the substance of criminal procedure is to draft a Fourth Amendment motion asking a court to suppress your client's the evidence that was found on your client's person. The best way to understand about the Fifth Amendment is to draft a motion arguing that your client had not made a knowing, intelligent, and voluntary waiver of their Miranda rights. You internalize it, you learn it, you understand it. I say regularly, we've talked about this. I did not understand Civ Pro until I showed up at a law firm right out of law school and I had to write my first 12b6 motion. It made a lot more sense. Law makes more sense in context. And what we do in the clinics is we put law into context so that it's not an abstract theory.
That's beautiful. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it's so important that our students get to do this. And you've been doing this for 19 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking for the easiest way to stay connected to everything happening at Emory Law? On the docket is the weekly e-newsletter made just for our students, faculty, and staff. Each week, On the Docket brings together all the details you need: student organization events, networking opportunities, pro bono projects, guest lectures, and happenings around Gambro Hall that keep our community moving. Want to share your own announcement? If your student organization or department is planning something, you can submit it to appear in an upcoming issue. Remember, On the Docket is exclusive to the Emory Law community, so if you're a current student, faculty member, or staff, this is your space to stay informed and engaged. Check your inbox each week and never miss what's happening at Emory Law, because everything you need to know is always on the docket.
One of our strategic goals is fiscal accountability. And of course, every university is going through this now with basic cutbacks on federal funding to universities. And so what does that mean for us? What it means is best business practices, prudent pruning of the budget here and there, so that we are sure that our dollars are going for the maximum impact toward True North. Episode 1 of the True North podcast, and I am so happy to be talking to you, Paula Ramos, our Director of Professionalism and of Student Engagement. Thank you for being here.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for wanting to talk to me.
Of course, and we do have a lot to talk about. You have been on the team and you have made such an impact here. You know, one of the parts of True North is our culture, is our support for each other. It's the sense of belonging. And one of the things you have made so clear here for all of us is that well-being and student thriving involves not just the academics, but to pursue the academics, they have to be adjusted and happy and at least engaged and involved in wellness. Walk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think as you've been such a champion of student flourishing, that's one of the first phrases I really remember hearing when I started here. And I think part of that student flourishing, as we know, even from the university level, is well-being. Students cannot flourish if they're not well. And it's not an add-on anymore, especially we're seeing as a new generation starts to matriculate into these professional schools. So what does that mean? That means we have a dual responsibility in addition to preparing them academically for what they're about to go through. They're about to enter, as you and I know, an incredibly stressful profession. And they can't thrive in that profession unless they know how to take care of their well-being. So that's a really important skill that we need to teach them.
It is, and it's a skill that older attorneys won't identify with in a lot of ways. So a lot of folks, certainly my generation, and it wasn't a work-life balance, it was just work. And so, but this is something that I think its research is showing this, right? That part of academic success and success in life is you have to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, this is research-based. We have seen it even in our profession, the ABA, for the last 20 years. They've documented what's happening in our profession. And then recently, even as recent as 2021, we've had the legal community look at law students in particular, and we're seeing some really disturbing behavior. So I think that the momentum has already started, and we are certainly part of that because we're recognizing and seeing that research and wanting to not produce, just as you often say, principled, sophisticated lawyers, but confident lawyers and lawyers who have the skill of resilience. And you're very right. In your generation and mine, it was pretty much throw you into the swimming pool and you just had to kind of hope you could get to the other side. But the research shows us that is not healthy and it does not produce strong lawyers.
So how do we do this balance? Because one of the things about law school, as you pointed out, is it's not college. This is not college. It is far more intense. Generally, 100% of the grade is on the final exam. Nobody's used to that. We grade on the curve, and so half of the class will not be in the top half, and this is a new experience for all of them. So we need to get them ready for that, I don't know what the word is, toughness, and yet we need to be mindful. How do we do both?
Right. I think we have to recognize that this is professional school, and it is not undergrad. But we also have to see them not just as potential law students, but as human beings. And so what we're trying to do is teach them the balance. We're not going, law school is law school. There's one exam and there's a curve. So we know that coming in. We know that produces certain stresses for our students. What we're trying to do is teach them how to balance that. To know when it's something as simple as you have to go to sleep in order for your body to perform. I mean, it sounds like to you and I in our generation, we knew that. These students don't know that all the time. They don't understand when they need to draw a boundary. When we're on a beautiful campus here, hey, maybe just go for a walk after class if you're feeling like, wow, that was a lot. So we're not reducing the rigor. I think oftentimes people hear well-being and they think, oh, well, it's not going to be as rigorous. No, that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is providing the scaffolding so they understand how to manage the rigor in a healthy way.
That's right. That's so well put. And it dawns on me, of course, that part of this comes from the practice and that lawyers there are serious substance abuse problems with lawyers. There's a lot of alcoholism among lawyers, and it's been true for decades. And so it's the state bars are even getting.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're even seeing here locally, like our own state bar here in Georgia. They started a well-being committee about 5 years ago. They have now, because the research continues to back that we need to look at these areas. So now they've developed a well-being center at the Georgia bar, which is, and you know when something is really taking hold because they have money. And so they have 1,200 lawyers who have contributed to this well-being center. So I think that, like I said before, the momentum is there. People understand nobody's trying to change law school or change the profession, but we want people to be healthy and we want people to produce in a way that it's a service profession, as we know, and as you often say. But again, we need people to show up as their best selves.
So how do we make this happen programmatically? What sorts of things should we be doing and are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, again, thanks for your support because I've been talking about this. And I think one of the things that we are looking at doing, which is certainly in line with many law schools, is providing for an embedded counselor. That's one of the things that has really been shown to produce great results in the law schools that have them. So having a counselor here available for the students. Of course, we have our wonderful CAP service here. But even though it's not that far to you and I, getting our law students sometimes to go to main campus is a challenge. That's one of the things that we're looking at doing. And then also a wellness room. We're looking at developing a space in the law school where students can go to just decompress. And then most of all, it's education. And we're starting a new student well-being council, and I just finalized that. We have 12 students who are eager to meet with me monthly and share feedback. They're experiencing law school. So let's hear from them. What do they think would make their experience better? So I'm excited for that.
That's wonderful. And you mentioned CAPS, which is a university program or department. One of the great things about this university is that it is a world-class university, and there are so many things available to law students through Central. But we're across the street, and the Central campus sometimes seems far away. But how have you gone about increasing awareness of what is available from Central, and how has that gone?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I did when I first got here is I recognized that we are part of a world-class institution. So I serve on a number of committees on the main campus, and through that, I'm able to engage with our peer schools and understand what's going on over there and learn about resources. And so I bring it back to my office and I talk to the students, even the gym, which is free. A lot of students didn't even realize that. I said, you could, instead of paying for these different gyms, you can go right across the street. So a lot of times I think it's just also educating our students, our law students, that yes, you're at Emory Law, but you're part of Emory University.
It is awareness. It's just communication, so much of this, because there is so much on the campus. How do you feel about the progress we're making and about getting programs up and running and engaging the students?
I'm excited. I really am. I feel like we started it through orientation. This year, for the first time, we really had significant programming around wellness, interwoven into orientation, and just talking more about it. We had the opportunity to share with faculty, and I heard back from a number of faculty members who thought, this is wonderful, this is great, we need to be doing this. So I feel like we're riding a wave. I'm excited.
I do too, and I feel like the faculty is completely on board with what we're doing in all of these spaces. And of course, we talk about academic eminence, and that includes students, obviously. Mm-hmm. And academic eminence goes to their academic performance, but again, to maximize that, we have to have folks who are also well-rounded and focused on the well-being as well.
Absolutely, and I think the faculty has been so supportive. I've had so many faculty members reach out to me, share their own stories around well-being, and I think that's an idea that we talked about, is bringing what we call a reframes dinner, which is really a way for people to share how they've overcome some challenges, how they've managed their well-being. That is very impactful on students, because students look up at the faculty as, wow, well, if they had some issues, maybe I can overcome mine too. That's very powerful.
That was a great point you made. You made it to the whole community, is that students look at us and say, wow, they have it made. Wow, look, they have these wonderful jobs. It must always have been that way. And in fact, it wasn't. And we've all stumbled, and we've all had to pick ourselves up and the like, but they don't know that. And so teaching resilience in part can be aided by sharing stories.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the things that I'll feel like we've really made progress is when it's normalized, when it's okay to say, you're not okay. Everyone's not okay every day. And I would love to continue to see our community get to that place.
I'm very excited about what you're doing, and I appreciate what you're doing, because I think the whole community is on board with this, and we are moving forward, and we're moving forward to True North, and I appreciate everything you're doing, Paula. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Without your support, it would not be possible. So thank you.
What fun that was, episode 1 of our True North podcast. And it was such fun to work with these colleagues in this podcast just to talk about what we do in the real world. Kamina Pinder about student flourishing and about the academic eminence on the student side. Same with Randy Waldman and how integral the clinics are to our legal education and the experience our students get. And Paula Ramos teaching us about the importance of the whole person, the whole person. My father was a high school coach, and to be a coach, you have to have a team. And I have always wanted to be a coach. And the job of a coach is to get the right players on the team and to show them that you have confidence in them and to support them and to have that direction, to know what true north is, to know what our goals are. And that's when you really start to sense the excitement. I so look forward to all of these podcasts and getting to talk to so many members of this great team as we know our direction, because we know true north.
Thank you for watching and listening to True North Navigating Law, hosted by Rich Freer, Dean and Charles Howard Candler Professor of Law. True North is recorded in the Hearsay Multimedia Studio at Emory University School of Law with digital producer Jamelia May, production manager Tayo Fayemi, content director A. Kenyatta Greer, and original theme music by Chandler M. Greer. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please like, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Share it with your legal community, friends, and family. And be sure to subscribe to Emory Law's YouTube channel to help others find the show and join our growing community.
Have you checked out Emory Lawyer magazine lately? The next issue arrives on January 12th, and it's more dynamic than ever. Emory Lawyer is now fully digital, offering an interactive experience with stories, photos, and videos that bring our community to life on any device. Each edition highlights the people and progress that define Emory Law, from groundbreaking faculty research and campus developments to student achievements and alumni who continue to shape the legal landscape and beyond. You can explore archived issues anytime at law.emory.edu/lawyer. Stay connected, stay inspired. That's the Emory Lawyer.